And the National Commission, along with other stakeholders, we managed to do some political orientation things in mobilizing the mass. We were conducting outreach. We were even more overstretched all over the world with very limited resources, and we showed to the world and even to our backers that we relied on ourselves financially. We depended on our people mainly, and the people are financing the Congress that we are going to convene next week or the week after. So these are very, what can I say, these are very tangible things that we have achieved so far. And the result of this is even being echoed within Eritrea. And through different ways, we are hearing that the Eritrean people are very encouraged, have been encouraged by our determination, our efforts, and our relentless work as well.
Another question. This question is combined with the president. What about the feelings of the Eritrean society toward your alliance? What you can appreciate it? It is a good situation, or you have to must go up?
If I have
in reality, we want just to know.
What do the Eritrean people think about the opposition?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, as I previously said, there is a paradigm shift. People we are the products of the people in Eritrea. Like myself, I was born and brought up there. I'm sorry to comment on such kind of things, to say things about private matters. So a lot of youth are turning against the regime now. We were the products of the regime. We were born and brought up, and we served the regime because we were in that country. And hundreds of thousands like us fleeing the country, who are military trained, who knows the country in and out very well. So all these people are very dismayed by the regime, and most of the people are very, 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 very hurt by the broken promises by the regime. So because of that, it's not only the impact of what we are doing outside, it's also from the international crisis that the regime itself created. The people are thinking that anyone who is opposing this regime, whether we are Eritreans like us, who came out of the country because of the well-founded persecution in our country, or even the other opposition groups like our fathers and others, I mean, people, elders who are in this room or outside this room opposing the regime, the people started to think they were right in the first place to oppose this regime since the 1980s. So we now knew that this regime doesn't represent us, doesn't meet our aspirations, our dreams. So the people, as much as they can, they are trying to isolate the regime themselves. So overall, the people think very positive about the process of change that we are involved in.
I just want to know what kind of obstacles and resistance that you might be expecting from the regime, and how far would they go to stop you?
As far can you introduce yourself again, please?
My name is Dr. Sharif from here. I'm a spinal surgeon.
We don't expect at this stage much resistance from the regime because we think this is the right time now. There was lots of obstacles and challenges previously that was met by our fathers who are present in this room. Different challenge in the past, but at the moment, at this stage, there is the backing of the majority of the Eritrean society about this Eritrean issue, and people are demanding change now. This is the will of the people. It's not the will of individuals. It's not the will of certain age group people. It's not the will of one ethnicity or region or one religion or any affiliations. It's the will of the people. So considering all these factors, we are not expecting much resistance from the regime. But the regime is, at the end of the day, because they are in control, they will do whatever they can to stop us.
I'm talking, obviously coming from Middle Eastern background, all what's happening in the Middle East, and are you expecting such resistance? That would they go that far to actually fight you, or actually, would they go that far?
They tried before. The only thing they might say is we are puppets of our neighbors. That's all they might say. But as I said, people like us, a lot of you, we fought war against our neighbors whom they are portraying as we are their puppets. We fought in arms against them, people like us. So there are hundreds of thousands of young men fleeing Eritrea on a daily basis in our neighbors and everything. And obviously this is the only tool that they can say, in order to the people you have to frighten them. So they are saying we can only guarantee you the stability of this country, otherwise the people who are puppets of our neighbor Ethiopia are going to take over. This is the only propaganda tool they use over and over again. Unfortunately and sadly, those people who took arms and fought against Ethiopians about 10 years ago are still fleeing to Ethiopia.
I have to add something to this. Of course, we expect that the regime will resist and will resist hard, and it's been doing this for a long time. And even if it is, if I could go, it is not to the extent, it is not an exaggeration. It is one of the worst dictatorship that will dare and use any means to prevent change, even if it has to kill thousands of people. So we don't say we cannot face resistance. We really know that the regime will not give up as easily as possible as any dictator. And worst of all, it is a dictator like Muammar al-Gaddafi. So the scenario expected in Eritrea is more or less
the same scenario.
To say the scenario of Libya. So we don't underestimate the resistance. This is to be more realistic. We will try the best we could. We will try to mobilize the people to just make our tools perfect as possible. Finally, to dislocate this regime, but still the regime will fight with this.
The army, do you think the army will be supporting you?
The army, partly, that army is built in a way that it serves the regime, like any of the Third World Army. Like what we have seen in Libya, what we are seeing in Syria now. So the regime will use any resistance he has to the last moment. And we are determined to fight also to the last. That is it. Finally, we believe that the people will win.
In addition to this, I will add further. As I said, the majority of the army, servicemen and women, are from the national service. So they are conscripted based on the mandatory national service scheme. And these people, they are forcibly conscripted. And as far as I know, and as far as we know all, the majority of those youth, men and women, are treated inhumanly. They are tortured there, and they are forced to do things forcibly that they don't necessarily agree to. And regardless of these things, regardless, there is a policy of shoot to kill and everything. The majority of those servicemen and women are fleeing the countries in hundreds on a daily basis. So this is how the army is built. But on the other hand, as he said, there are some people who are already in control, and those people are like security apparatus and the secret services and those sort of people. And those people are in control. However, we think and we believe that we are proving to our people and to our armed forces, and we are playing to them that we are a better alternative, and we can meet the aspirations and the dream of the people, and our only aim is to move the country towards a democratic path, and because of that, we are receiving very positive response from our people, and the way and the mechanisms and the channels that we use is we have very effective media outlets, we have very effective people who infiltrate into the country, who spread our words and our promises. So through all these factors, we believe our army would be ready sooner or later.
Should you accept there is some contradiction? How can you realize this the democratic change, and you said that is on another hand, the government is so terrible, so horrible, like the Bashar al-Assad, like the Muammar al-Gaddafi. There is يعني في فجوة في تناقض شوية. لا مش تناقض في الكلام، أقصد يعني كيف تذهبون إلى الديمقراطية وأمامكم هذا الوحش؟ يعني ما هي الأساليب الآن؟ هذه الأساليب التي تقولها لا يمكن، يعني أنتم بحاجة إلى أساليب الآن أقوى من الأساليب الديمقراطية. أنا لا أدعو للتسلح، لا أنا ضد التسلح، ولكن يعني طالما هو بهذه البشاعة كيف يمكن أن تعتمدوا فقط على التغيير الديمقراطي؟
No. Even though the regime is so terrible, ruthless and ruthless regime, depending on its military power and everything and secret services, you think we may struggle to achieve our goals, and thus is turning the country towards a democratic process. It's not impossible, and we saw it happening in other countries where the regime had more human resources than the regime we have in our country. Other regimes who had international support more than our regime, more than the regime we're opposing against. So because the regime is ruthless, it doesn't mean it's going to take us a while to topple the regime. All we want to make sure to our people is that the opposition in diaspora is united, and the opposition arena is very viable. And the opposition reflects, as I said, the aspirations and the dream of the people. And we want, through our appeal, using the differences, the different options available to us, like by tightening the support of the regime in diaspora. The regime relies so much on the diaspora. The people in diaspora, they pay 2% tax levy to the regime.
How much?
2%. In addition to what they pay to any governments abroad. And depends on money transfer or remittances. And they depends for their propaganda purpose. They rely a lot on people's support in diaspora for diplomacy-wise or for trade or other things. So we are making very tangible process in cutting off this sort of support of the regime. As much as the regime is making very much propaganda through its model of propaganda in diaspora, that is got support of international governments and the people in diaspora through all these aspects, we are making very huge progresses in cutting off these things. And one of the things is we are encouraging people not to pay these 2% things. We are holding demonstration and staging demonstration throughout the world, magnitude-wise, size-wise, and quality-wise, and everything-wise, much more sophisticated than it used to be. And these things are echoed and reflected in our country, and even in its supporters in diaspora. And second thing is, because of the regime's bad policy, the regime itself is in crisis, from in a very difficult position, because the international, the regional governments in Africa, the countries of our, the neighboring countries like Sudan, Ethiopia, Djibouti, and Kenya, Uganda, and all of these, they supported for the first time, and they lobbied the international community to impose a sanction against the regime, because the regime is being identified as a factor of instability in that region. So this was the initiative of neighboring countries, that the regime is not conducive in that region. And the other thing is, as far as not only in our neighborhood, in our region, the regime is also getting involved in a lot of mess against big powers, against the US interests, against the British interests, against the French and others. And those also countries, including Russia and China, didn't oppose in 2009 when the African Union took the initiative and called for imposing a sanction against another African country. So the sanction is still there, and it's been reviewed early this year, and still they are preparing another phase of sanctions, more sanctions against the regime. So through all this, because of all these factors, we believe the regime is going to be toppled sooner or later.
Do you mean that the regime is isolated in Africa by the European Union? That's it?
بخصوص النقطة هذه يمكن or let me say it in English. First, we have all the options. All the options to deal with the regime. So if it needs to confront the regime militarily, we can go to that extent.
So obviously you've been doing this for the past 20 years, as he said.
Yeah, we have.
So it's not something that.
Yeah, it is not new. So the option is there, and we can use it whenever it is necessary. So by non-violent methods, demonstrations, economical sanctions, and whatever, then we use this as a tool, and we can use, or some of the opposition are using a military option too. So it is an open strategy. You can deal with it as necessity demands.